Emerald had encountered various types of patients during her time as a nurse, but none like Mr. Harrison. At first glance, he seemed ordinary, middle-aged, wealthy, and calm. But as she checked his vitals, something felt off. He had no complaints about his health, yet he watched her every move with an unsettling gaze. "You have a soft touch, Nurse Emerald," he said, giving her a smile that sent shivers down her spine. She kept her composure, pretending not to notice the way his eyes followed her. Ignoring his remarks, she concentrated on her work, but the more she tried to stay professional, the more insistent he became. "Why don't you stay a little longer?" Mr. Harrison asked, reaching for her hand. Emerald quickly pulled her hand back and looked him in the eyes. "I'm here to help you with your health, not to chat." But he wasn't finished. As Emerald stood to leave, he grabbed her wrist and pulled her towards him. Startled, she immediately reacted. Using her self-defense training, she pinned him to the ground, his shocked face inches from hers. After composing herself, Emerald stormed out of the room and headed straight to Dr. Collins, the hospital director. She explained what had happened, expecting support, or at least understanding. Instead, Dr. Collins leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Emerald, you'll have to suck it up. Mr. Harrison is our hospital's biggest investor. We can't afford to lose him. So do whatever he says." Emerald's heart sank. She was afraid of losing her job, but the thought of going back to treat a man who had crossed the line terrified her. What Emerald didn't know was that her colleague Brandon, who secretly admired her, had overheard the entire conversation. Brandon had always been shy around Emerald, never gathering the courage to confess his feelings. But seeing her in distress lit a fire within him. He wasn't about to let her face this alone. Emerald spent the rest of the day feeling nervous and scared. She couldn't stop thinking about the moment she would have to go back to Mr. Harrison's room. Every time she passed the door, her stomach felt sick. She hated the way he looked at her, knowing she had no choice but to treat him. It felt like a trap she couldn't escape. Meanwhile, Brandon couldn't stop feeling angry. He knew what Dr. Collins had told Emerald was wrong. No one should have to put up with someone like Mr. Harrison, no matter how rich or important they were. Brandon wanted to help Emerald, but he wasn't sure how. He knew he had to be careful, or he might make things worse for her. After work, Emerald sat alone in the staff lounge, trying to calm her racing mind. She thought about reporting Mr. Harrison to someone higher, but what if it didn't work? What if she lost her job and couldn't support her family? Just as she was lost in thought, Brandon walked in, looking more serious than she had ever seen him. He came over and sat next to her. "Emerald, we need to talk." His voice was calm but firm. Emerald looked at him, surprised. She didn't know Brandon very well, but he had always been nice to her. Brandon told her that he had overheard what happened with Mr. Harrison and that he didn't think she should face it alone. He wanted her to know that Mr. Harrison had no right to treat her that way, and she shouldn't feel like she had to put up with it. Emerald didn't know what to say. She was used to handling things by herself, and she hadn't expected anyone to stand up for her, especially not Brandon. She admitted that she was confused and scared. Dr. Collins had told her she had to keep treating Mr. Harrison, but she didn't know if she could keep doing it. Brandon didn't wait for her to finish. "You don't have to do it. We'll find another way. You're not alone in this." Emerald felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe she didn't have to go through this by herself. The next day, Emerald entered Mr. Harrison's room, but this time she didn't let her fear show. She acted calm and professional, determined not to let him see how nervous she was. Mr. Harrison smiled when he saw her, clearly pleased that she had come back. "I knew you'd return," he said smugly. "You're smarter than you look." Emerald ignored him, checking his chart and starting her examination, but every second she spent in that room felt like it was too long. Mr. Harrison kept making comments, each one worse than the last, but Emerald tried to block him out and focus on her work. What Mr. Harrison didn't know was that Brandon had already started working on a plan. He was gathering information about Mr. Harrison's behavior, trying to find a way to stop him without getting Emerald in trouble. But it was hard. Mr. Harrison had power and influence, and if they made one wrong move, it could cost them both their jobs. Days passed, and the situation only got worse. Mr. Harrison became more confident in his behavior, believing that Emerald wouldn't stand up to him. But she stayed strong, knowing that Brandon was with her. Then, one day, things took a dangerous turn. Emerald was in Mr. Harrison's room again, trying to finish her tasks as quickly as possible, but this time something felt different. Mr. Harrison wasn't just talking. He stood up from his bed and walked toward her. "I've been waiting long enough," he said in a low, angry voice, moving closer. Emerald's heart started racing. She backed away, but she was trapped in the small room. She didn't know what to do. Suddenly the door flew open, and Brandon rushed in, his face full of anger. "Step back, Harrison," he warned. Mr. Harrison froze in place, his smug look disappearing. "Who do you think you are?" he asked, his voice filled with anger. "This has nothing to do with you." Brandon didn't back down. He stood between Mr. Harrison and Emerald, his fists clenched. "Emerald is my colleague, and you're crossing the line. This isn't just wrong. It's illegal." Harrison's face turned red with fury. "You really think you can challenge me? I could have you both fired by tomorrow." Emerald stood frozen, watching the two men face off. She could feel the tension rising, like a storm about to break. She wanted to stop it from getting worse, but she knew that this moment was important. Brandon took a step forward, his voice calm but strong. "You can try to get me fired, but if you lay another hand on Emerald, I'll report you to the police. You might be rich, but you can't hide from the law." Mr. Harrison's face twisted in anger, but he didn't say anything. After a long, tense moment, he turned and stormed out of the room, muttering under his breath. "You'll regret this," he hissed as he left. Emerald finally let out the breath she had been holding. Her legs felt weak, but she managed to stand. Brandon turned to her, his face softening. "Are you okay?" Emerald nodded, though she felt shaken. "Thank you, Brandon. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come." Brandon's voice was firm. "You're not dealing with this alone anymore. But we need to be careful. This isn't over." Emerald knew he was right. Mr. Harrison wasn't going to give up easily, and things could still get worse. But for the first time, she felt like she had someone on her side, and that made her feel a little stronger. The next day, Mr. Harrison filed a complaint against Brandon, accusing him of being unprofessional. Emerald knew it was Harrison's way of getting back at them for standing up to him. Still, it filled her with fear. Dr. Collins called both Emerald and Brandon to his office. His face looked serious as they sat down. "Do you know what kind of trouble you've caused? Mr. Harrison is angry, and he's threatening to stop giving money to the hospital. That could ruin us." Brandon leaned forward, his eyes flashing with anger. "He's the one causing trouble. He's been harassing Emerald, and when I stepped in to protect her, now he's trying to blame us." Dr. Collins sighed deeply. "Even if that's true, Mr. Harrison is our biggest investor. We can't afford to lose him." Emerald felt sick to her stomach. She had expected Dr. Collins to side with Harrison, but hearing it out loud made her feel worse. "So what do you want us to do?" she asked quietly. Dr. Collins looked at them both. "You need to apologize to Mr. Harrison. Maybe then he'll calm down, and we can avoid a bigger problem." Brandon stood up, anger clear on his face. "Apologize? After everything he's done?" "It's the only way," Dr. Collins replied firmly. Emerald sat in silence, torn between her fear of losing her job and the thought of giving in to a man like Mr. Harrison. Brandon looked at her, waiting for her to speak. She wasn't sure what to do, but she knew one thing: this fight wasn't over. Emerald lay awake that night, replaying the events of the day in her mind. Should she apologize to Mr. Harrison, even though he was the one in the wrong? It felt unfair, but she needed her job. Her family depended on her, and losing it would be a disaster. The next morning, Brandon found her in the break room. "Have you decided what to do?" he asked gently. Emerald shook her head, the weight of the situation heavy on her shoulders. "I don't want to apologize, but I don't know if I have a choice." Brandon leaned closer, his voice soft but serious. "You do have a choice, Emerald. You don't have to do this alone. If we let Harrison get away with this, who knows what he'll do next? We need to stand up to him." Emerald looked at him, her mind racing. Could they really fight back against someone as powerful as Mr. Harrison? Part of her wanted to believe in Brandon's confidence, but the fear of what could happen kept pulling her back. Brandon gave her a reassuring smile. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you. Just know that I'm with you in this." Emerald felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe they could find a way out of this without giving in to Mr. Harrison's demands. The next day, Mr. Harrison came back to the hospital. When Emerald saw him, her heart started to race. But this time, she wasn't as scared. She saw Brandon standing down the hall watching her. He gave her a little nod, and she took a deep breath. She knew she wasn't alone anymore. Mr. Harrison walked up to her with a mean smile on his face. "I'm waiting for my apology," he said. Emerald stood tall and spoke clearly. "I have nothing to apologize for." His smile disappeared, and he looked surprised. "What did you say?" "I said, I have nothing to apologize for. What you did was wrong, and you know it." For a moment, Mr. Harrison looked shocked. No one ever talked to him like that, but then his face turned angry. "You'll be sorry for this," he said in a low voice before walking away quickly. Emerald's heart was beating fast, but she felt proud. She couldn't believe she had stood up to him. She had faced her fear and said what needed to be said. As she watched him walk away, something didn't make sense. Why did Mr. Harrison keep coming to the hospital when he wasn't even sick? Curious, she called out, "Why do you keep pretending to be sick, Mr. Harrison?" He stopped and turned around, a strange smile on his face. Slowly, he walked back toward her. "You really want to know?" he asked, sounding like he was about to share a secret. Emerald nodded. "Yes, I do." "Why are you here if you're not sick?" Mr. Harrison laughed a little. "I'm hiding from my wife," he said, acting like it was no big deal. "What?" Emerald couldn't believe what she was hearing. "She won't let me bring other women home. I can't stay with just one woman," Mr. Harrison said, looking bored. Emerald was shocked. "So you come to the hospital just to hide from your wife?" He grinned. "Yes, I don't like hotels and they cost too much. But hospitals, they're perfect. I love the smell, it's clean, and nobody asks questions. Plus, there are always nurses around." Emerald felt disgusted. "You come here to cheat on your wife and because you like the smell. This is a hospital, not some kind of playground." Mr. Harrison shrugged like it didn't matter. "Exactly, I enjoy it. I get to be in control." Emerald couldn't believe what she was hearing. "This is wrong. You're using a hospital, a place where sick people come to get better, for your own games." For a moment, Mr. Harrison's smile faded. He stared at Emerald. "Be careful," he warned. "You're stepping into dangerous territory." But Emerald didn't back down. "I'm not afraid of you. What you're doing is cruel, and it's going to catch up to you." Mr. Harrison stared at her for a long time, then walked away without another word. Emerald stood there, still feeling angry and shocked, but also relieved. She had finally told him the truth. She looked down the hall and saw Brandon watching her. He gave her a nod, showing that he was proud of her. Emerald smiled back, knowing that even though things were tough, she had found her courage. Emerald went home that evening, still feeling strong after standing up to Mr. Harrison. But she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. She decided to talk to her boyfriend, Michael, about what had been happening at the hospital. She needed to tell someone, and maybe he would know what to do. When Emerald met up with Michael later that night, they sat down in the small cafe, where they usually talked about everything. She took a deep breath and told him about Mr. Harrison, how he had been bothering her, pretending to be sick just to harass her, and how he was using his money and power to control everyone. Michael listened quietly at first, nodding his head, but when Emerald finished, his face didn't look as upset as she thought it would. In fact, he looked like he was thinking hard about something else. After a long pause, Michael finally spoke. "Emerald, maybe you should just give Mr. Harrison what he wants." Emerald's heart sank. "What? You can't be serious," she said, shocked that Michael would even suggest that. Michael shrugged, not looking too worried. "Look, I know it sounds bad, but think about it. Mr. Harrison is rich, really rich. If you keep fighting him, you might lose your job. And we need money. You know your mom needs surgery, and we're struggling to pay for it. If you just do what he wants, maybe he'll give you money and we can get your mom the help she needs." Emerald felt like she couldn't breathe. "Michael, I can't believe you're saying this. You want me to let Mr. Harrison treat me like that just for money?" Michael leaned in, his voice calm but serious. "It's not about wanting to, Emerald. It's about survival. Your mom is sick and you can't afford to lose your job. Think about the bigger picture. You don't have to like Mr. Harrison, but maybe this is a way to get what we need." Emerald stared at him, her mind spinning. She couldn't believe the person she loved was saying these things. Yes, they needed money, and yes, her mum's surgery was expensive. But was this really the answer? She thought about her mum, lying in bed, weak and needing help. The thought of not being able to pay for the surgery terrified her, but the idea of giving in to Mr. Harrison made her feel sick to her stomach. Michael looked at her, waiting for her to say something. "Emerald, we can't afford to be proud right now. You said it yourself, Mr. Harrison is powerful. He could make your life really hard if you don't go along with him." Emerald shook her head slowly. "I don't care how powerful he is. What he's doing is wrong, and I won't let him control me like that." Michael sighed, looking frustrated. "You're being stubborn, Emerald. This could solve so many problems for us. Think about it. You could even ask him for money for your mum's surgery. He wouldn't say no." Emerald felt tears sting her eyes. "I thought you would understand, Michael. I thought you would stand by me, not push me to do something like this." Michael leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "I'm trying to be practical, Emerald. You can't always fight. Sometimes you have to do what's necessary to survive." Emerald stood up, her heart heavy. "Maybe, but I'm not that kind of person. I'm not going to sell my self-respect for money." Michael didn't stop her as she walked away. Emerald's mind was spinning. She couldn't believe what he had said. How could someone who claimed to love her want her to do something so awful? She walked home, her thoughts racing. She felt alone. Even Michael, the person she thought she could count on, wasn't on her side. And her mother's surgery weighed on her mind. How could she find the money without giving in to Mr. Harrison? But deep down, she knew one thing for sure. No matter how hard things got, she wouldn't let Mr. Harrison win. She couldn't let herself be trapped by his money or power, no matter how much pressure she felt. The next day, Emerald went to work feeling tired and upset. The conversation with Michael kept replaying in her head. She couldn't believe he had suggested something so terrible. She knew she needed to talk to someone, so she decided to tell Brandon. He had always been kind to her, and she needed someone who would listen. During their lunch break, Emerald found Brandon sitting alone in the staff lounge. She sat down next to him, and without wasting time, she told him everything. She told him about what Michael had said, how he wanted her to give in to Mr. Harrison just for money, and how he thought it would solve their problems. Brandon listened quietly, his face getting more serious with every word. When she was done, he looked at her, his eyes filled with anger. "That boy does not love you," Brandon said, his voice tight with frustration. "If he really loved you, he would never ask you to do something like that. He's just thinking about himself." Emerald looked down at her hands, feeling the sting of Brandon's words, but deep down she knew he was right. Brandon sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I wish I had enough money, Emerald. If I did, I'd pay for your mum's hospital bills in a second. You shouldn't have to deal with all this alone." Emerald felt tears welling up in her eyes. Brandon's words touched her. He didn't have to say those things, but he did, and it made her feel less alone. "I don't know what to do," Emerald admitted, her voice shaky. "I feel stuck. I want to help my mum, but I can't give in to Mr. Harrison." Brandon nodded. "I know, it's not fair that you're in this situation, but you're strong. You've already stood up to him once, and you can do it again. We'll figure something out. You're not alone in this." Emerald felt a bit of relief hearing that. Brandon's support gave her strength, and she was grateful to have someone like him on her side. But the problem still loomed large in front of her, her mother's surgery. Time was running out, and they didn't have the money. "Thank you," Emerald whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Brandon smiled softly, though there was still worry in his eyes. "We'll get through this, Emerald. We just have to take it one step at a time." The rest of the day passed slowly. Emerald focused on her work, trying not to think about Mr. Harrison or the conversation with Michael. But as she went about her tasks, she couldn't help but wonder what she would do if no solution came soon. Would she have to choose between her self-respect and her mother's health? Later that evening, as she walked home, Emerald found herself thinking more about Brandon. He had always been kind to her, but today felt different. The way he spoke to her, the way he cared, it made her feel safe. Unlike Michael, who was willing to throw her into a terrible situation, Brandon seemed like someone she could trust. Someone who saw her as more than just a means to an end. But she couldn't get too distracted. There were still big decisions to make, and her mother's health was at the center of it all. When she got home, she sat down and tried to think of a plan. Maybe there was another way to raise money. The next morning, Emerald decided to go to Michael's house. She had loaned him some money a few months ago, and now she needed it back. She thought if she could collect the money, it would help cover part of her mum's hospital bills. She felt nervous, but she convinced herself that Michael would do the right thing and give her back the money he owed. When she arrived at Michael's house, she knocked on the door and waited. After a moment, the door opened, and to her shock, standing next to Michael was an older woman. She was dressed in expensive clothes and had lots of gold jewelry. Emerald immediately felt uneasy. She didn't know who this woman was, but she could tell she had money. Michael looked at Emerald with a cold expression. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply. Emerald swallowed her nerves and said, "I came to collect the money I loaned you. I need it for my mum's hospital bills." Michael smirked and glanced at the wealthy woman beside him. The woman didn't seem bothered by Emerald's presence. She was busy looking at her phone, not paying much attention. Michael leaned against the doorframe and crossed his arms. "Why are you still bothering me with this? You know, if you had just done what I asked, slept with Mr. Harrison and gotten us the money, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Emerald felt her heart drop. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Michael, I came here for my money. I don't want to talk about Mr. Harrison anymore." Michael laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was cold and heartless. "Well, too bad, Emerald. You couldn't even do one thing to help me, and now you want to come here asking for money. Why would I give you anything?" Emerald was stunned. "Michael, I loaned you that money. It's mine, and I need it back." Michael turned to the older woman, who was now watching the conversation with a bored look on her face. He grinned at her and said, "See, this is why I need someone like you in my life. You're not like her. You have real money, and you know how to have fun." The woman rolled her eyes, but gave him a playful smile. Emerald couldn't believe what was happening. It was like Michael had completely changed. The kind, caring person she thought she knew was gone, replaced by someone who only cared about money. Emerald felt anger rising in her chest. "Michael, give me my money and I'll leave." Michael's face hardened. "I don't owe you anything, Emerald. In fact, you should be the one apologizing to me. You wasted my time. Now get out of here. I don't want to see you again." Emerald's eyes widened. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "But that money was for my mom's surgery. You promised you'd pay me back." Michael stepped closer to her, his voice dripping with cruelty. "I don't care about your mom or her surgery. You can go find someone else to cry to. I'm done with you." Emerald's heart pounded in her chest. She had never felt so betrayed. She turned to leave, but before she walked away, she looked back at Michael one last time. "I can't believe I ever trusted you." Michael laughed again and slammed the door in her face. Emerald stood outside, feeling crushed. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she fought them back. She couldn't believe what had just happened. Michael, the person she thought cared about her, had turned into someone so selfish and cruel. All because of money. She walked away from his house, her heart heavy. She didn't know what to do next. Without the money, she didn't have enough for her mum's surgery. Everything felt hopeless. But as she walked, something inside her shifted. Maybe it was the way Michael had laughed at her, or maybe it was the realization that she was better off without him. Either way, Emerald knew one thing. She wasn't going to let him or anyone else take away her strength. She wiped away her tears and kept walking. She would find another way to get the money for her mom. She wasn't giving up yet. And she wasn't going to let anyone treat her like that again. When Emerald got home, she wasn't expecting any money from anyone. So when she checked her phone and saw a message alerting her to a huge deposit in her account, she was completely shocked. Her hands trembled as she stared at the screen. Who could have sent such a large amount of money? Her heart pounded as she tried to make sense of it. She didn't know anyone with enough money to send her that much, especially not without saying anything first. Could it be a mistake? The first person that came to her mind was Michael. Maybe he had felt guilty for the way he treated her and decided to return the money he owed her. Without wasting any time, she dialed his number. Michael answered the call, sounding annoyed. "What do you want now, Emerald?" "Michael, did you send me money? I just got a huge deposit in my account," she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Michael let out a cold laugh. You think I'd give you a single cent? Are you that foolish? I wouldn't give you money even if you or your mother were on your deathbeds. Don't ever call me again." Emerald's heart sank. So it wasn't Michael, but if he hadn't sent the money, then who did? She quickly hung up, feeling more confused than ever. Next, she thought of Brandon. He had always been supportive and concerned about her mother's surgery. Maybe he had somehow managed to get the money together and sent it to her. She dialed his number, hoping he had an answer. "Brandon, did you send me any money?" she asked. Brandon sounded confused. "Money? No, I didn't send you anything. I wish I could help, but I don't have that kind of money." Emerald sighed, frustration building up. "Are you sure? It's a lot of money, Brandon." "I'm sure, Emerald. I don't know who sent it, but it wasn't me," Brandon replied. Now more puzzled than ever, Emerald didn't know what to think. Who could have done this? The next morning, she went to work with the intention of confronting the only other person who came to mind, Mr. Harrison. Maybe he had tried to bribe her again, this time using money to make her change her mind. When she spotted Mr. Harrison in the hospital lobby, she marched straight up to him, her heart pounding. Without waiting for him to speak, she confronted him. "Stop sending me money," she shouted. Mr. Harrison looked at her, completely baffled. "What on earth are you talking about?" "The money in my account. I know it was you, but I'm telling you now, I don't care how much money you send. I will never sleep with you." Emerald's voice shook with anger. Mr. Harrison's confusion turned to irritation. "I didn't send you any money. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I had nothing to do with it." Emerald's face flushed with embarrassment, and she quickly turned and walked away. If it wasn't him, then who? Desperate for answers, she decided to speak with her boss, Dr. Collins. Maybe he knew something about the strange deposit. She knocked on his office door, hoping for some clarity. "Dr. Collins, did you send me money?" she asked as soon as she entered. Dr. Collins looked at her with a smirk. "Me? Send you money? Don't be ridiculous. Why would I give you that kind of money?" Emerald felt a chill run down her spine. "I don't understand. Who sent it then?" Dr. Collins leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "You're wasting time worrying about who sent the money. You should be focusing on Mr. Harrison. He's one of our elite clients, a man of power. If you don't keep him happy, your job is at risk." Emerald stared at him, horrified. "Why me? What's so special about me that Mr. Harrison keeps bothering me?" Dr. Collins shrugged. "It's not about you being special. It's about him wanting what he wants. You'd better make a decision soon. If you keep refusing him, you could be out of a job in 2 weeks." Emerald left his office, her head spinning with confusion and anger. She had no idea who had sent her the money, but now she had an even bigger problem. Everyone seemed to be pushing her toward Mr. Harrison, and her job was on the line. Her heart was heavy as she walked home, feeling more trapped than ever. She didn't know what to do, but one thing was clear. She wasn't going to let anyone force her into doing something she didn't want to do. But as the days passed, she would need to figure out how to stand her ground without losing everything. Emerald was still feeling confused and upset when she decided to go to Brandon's house that evening. She had trusted him, and he was one of the only people who seemed to truly care about her situation. She needed someone to talk to, someone who could give her advice. When she arrived, Brandon welcomed her in, noticing the worry on her face. "What's wrong?" he asked. Emerald sighed deeply. "Brandon, I'm so confused. I got this huge amount of money in my account, but I have no idea who sent it. What if the person who sent it by mistake?" Brandon listened carefully, then spoke softly. "Emerald, maybe this money is a blessing in disguise. Your mum needs surgery, right? You've been struggling to find a way to pay for it. This money could help her get better. You should use it." Emerald looked at him, unsure. "But what if it's a mistake, Brandon? What if the person comes back for the money? I'd be in so much trouble." Brandon shook his head. "Don't worry about that right now. Your mum's health is the most important thing. You need to focus on her getting better. Whoever sent the money, maybe they don't want it back. And if they do, we'll figure something out." After thinking it over, Emerald realized that Brandon had a point. Her mother's health was the priority, and this might be her only chance to save her. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay, I'll use the money for the surgery." A few days later, Emerald used the money to pay for her mother's operation. The surgery went well, and after a few weeks, her mother was on the road to recovery. Emerald felt a huge weight lift off her shoulders, grateful that her mum was getting better. However, things took a surprising turn a few weeks after her mother's surgery. News spread around the hospital that both Mr. Harrison and Dr. Collins had been arrested. Emerald couldn't believe it. How had this happened? It wasn't until Brandon came to visit her at home one day that she learned the truth. He sat down with her, his expression serious but calm. "Emerald, there's something I need to tell you," Brandon began. Emerald looked at him confused. "What is it?" Brandon took a deep breath. "I haven't been completely honest with you. I'm actually an undercover agent. I was sent to investigate the hospital because we suspected there were illegal and corrupt activities going on there." Emerald's eyes widened in shock. "You're an undercover agent? But why didn't you tell me?" "I couldn't," Brandon explained. "It was my job to keep everything secret. I had to blend in and act like a regular employee so no one would suspect anything. But when I met you, I saw how innocent you were and how much trouble Mr. Harrison and Dr. Collins were causing you. That's when I knew I had to protect you." Emerald was speechless. She had never suspected Brandon was anything other than a kind co-worker. She couldn't believe he had been undercover the whole time. "Mr. Harrison and Dr. Collins were involved in a lot of shady deals," Brandon continued. "They were exploiting women, taking bribes, and even stealing hospital funds. We had been gathering evidence for a while, and their arrest was part of a bigger operation to clean up the corruption in the hospital." Emerald felt a mixture of relief and amazement. "So they were arrested because of the investigation you were doing?" "Yes," Brandon said with a nod. "But there's something else. Remember the money you received? It wasn't a mistake. That money wasn't from some fund or by accident. It was mine. I sent it to you because I knew you needed it for your mum's surgery. I didn't want to say anything at first, but I couldn't just stand by and watch you struggle." Emerald's eyes widened in shock. "Yours? Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice trembled with emotion. Brandon took a deep breath and stepped closer to her, his expression soft but serious. "I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything. I know how much your mom means to you, and I couldn't stand watching you suffer, worrying about her surgery. You were desperate, and I just wanted to help in any way I could." Emerald's heart pounded in her chest. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized the depth of his kindness. "But, Brandon, why didn't you say something sooner? You could have told me." Brandon looked down for a moment, then met her gaze. "Because I love you, Emerald," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I've loved you for a long time, but I didn't want to push you. I was waiting for the right moment, and I thought helping you without making it about me was the best thing to do. I wanted you to know that someone cared, even if you didn't know who it was." Emerald felt her breath catch in her throat. She had always known Brandon was kind, but this was different. He wasn't just a friend helping her out of pity, he genuinely loved her. Her heart raced as she realized she had been waiting for him to say it all along. She had felt the same way for so long, but had never had the courage to admit it. "Brandon," she whispered, her voice barely audible, I love you too. I've loved you for a while now, but I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to make things awkward between us." Brandon's face lit up with relief and joy. "You mean it?" he asked, his eyes searching hers for any doubt. Emerald nodded, tears spilling over her cheeks. "Yes, I mean it. I've felt this way for a long time, but I was afraid to say anything. I was waiting for you to tell me first." Brandon couldn't contain his smile. He gently wiped the tears from her face and pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "I'm so glad you feel the same," he murmured. "I promise you, Emerald, I'll always be here for you. You don't have to go through anything alone anymore." Emerald rested her head against his chest, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in months. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right. But while Emerald was finding happiness with Brandon, her ex-boyfriend Michael was facing the consequences of his actions. The wealthy older woman he had been with had grown tired of him and dumped him for a younger, more successful man. Michael had thought he was smart, using her for money, but now he realized he had been the one used. He was left with nothing. Desperate and filled with regret, Michael decided to try and win Emerald back. He showed up at her doorstep one afternoon, looking defeated and ashamed. "Emerald," he began, his voice shaky. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I should have treated you better. Please, can we start over?" Emerald looked at him, feeling a mixture of pity and frustration. "Michael, it's too late," she said softly but firmly. "You made your choice when you left me for that woman. I needed you, and you turned your back on me when I was struggling. I've moved on now. I have someone in my life who truly cares about me, and I'm happy. I don't need you anymore." Michael's face fell, his regret clear. "But Emerald," he began to protest, but she stopped him. "No, Michael, I deserve better. You had your chance, and you threw it away. Now it's time for you to live with the consequences of your choices." Michael left, crushed and regretful, knowing he had lost someone special. But Emerald felt no sadness about it. She had found real love and didn't need someone like Michael dragging her down. As the days passed, Emerald and Brandon grew closer, their relationship blossoming. They spent more time together, sharing their hopes and dreams, and building a life full of love and support. Brandon's love gave Emerald the strength she had always needed but never found in anyone else. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Emerald turned to Brandon with a smile. "You know, I used to think that all the struggles I went through were unfair, but now I see that everything led me to you. I wouldn't trade anything because it brought me here." Brandon squeezed her hand. "I'm just glad I could be there for you when you needed it the most. And I'll always be here, no matter what." Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.